Everybody, we are the Solutions Not Punishment Coalition. And we're going to do a sauce. Alright, get that energy up in here. I know y'all eating all this good food. My God, itis. So we're here to talk to you all about pre-arrest diversion. And we see pre-arrest diversion as the answer to keeping our people out of jail and in our communities. So with the first few slides, we're really going to break down this myth of Atlanta being the city too busy to hate. What you're going to see is that Atlanta is actually the city too busy to create real solutions for Black and poor people living here. You'll see that Atlanta uses the Atlanta City Detention Center to hide the issues affecting Black poor people, such as unemployment, mental illness, substance abuse, and homelessness. Atlanta leads the nation in income inequality, which means that it is the #1 city out of 50 states that has the highest gap between its richest citizens and its poor citizens. The top 5% in Atlanta income is 20 times greater than those at the bottom. So what you see here is that we have the wealthy here in Atlanta, the top 5%, whose income is 20 times, not twice as much, not 3 times as much, but 20 times greater than those who are at the bottom. Here we see that this isn't simply a class issue, but those people at the bottom are Black people. You see a breakdown of the county economic disparity rates and the city's economic disparity rates. In the city of Atlanta, the income of the average Black resident is $17,000 a year, compared to the income of the average white person living in Atlanta, which is $62,000. That's a 3 times difference. We also see here they did a study about economic mobility. So how do people start from the bottom and get to the top? We see that Atlanta is at the very bottom. So if you start at the bottom, you're most likely going to stay there if you live in the city of Atlanta. We're going to talk about the ways that the police, the courts, and the jail maintain and deepen these inequalities that we're seeing between Blacks living in Atlanta and whites living in Atlanta. Myth or fact? The Atlanta City Detention Center houses dangerous suspects on serious charges while police and prosecutors investigate the crime and begin the legal prosecution process. What do you all think? Is that a myth or is that a fact? You say it's a fact?
I don't think they have any dangerous suspects. I think so.
Can I get a raise of hands? How many of y'all think that the Atlanta City Detention Center is housing dangerous criminals and investigating these cases? Oh, no hands. Fact. The Atlanta City Detention Center, also known as the City Jail, is currently built with hundreds of people who have committed no worse offense than jaywalking, spitting on the sidewalk, or a traffic violation. Here you can see a racial breakdown of the Atlanta City Detention Center during the first quarter of year 2015. We see that it's 92% Black people sitting inside the Atlanta City Detention Center. 92% and 8% white. Here on this chart, you see both the gender and racial breakdown. You see that 0% of white women are being incarcerated or were incarcerated during the first quarter of 2015 in the city of Atlanta, while 16% of Black women were incarcerated in the Atlanta City Detention Center, and 76% Black males and 8% white males. Fact. The truth is, the jail is used to hide the homeless and contain the mentally ill. Baldwin County Sheriff Bill Massey says that every jail in every county in the state of Georgia now is the mental health hospital. Half of the 2,600 inmates sitting in Fulton County Jail suffer from some form of mental illness. Half. Fact, Georgia's county jail houses a total of 77,000 inmates with mental illnesses. Myth or fact, our city court system, also known as the municipal court, is an efficient and necessary mechanism for enforcing traffic and minor offenses, finding people reasonably in accordance with their ability to pay.
Dream.
Fact. Our city court and the private probation company they contract with profit off of people too poor to pay their fines on their court date. Their outrageous fines and fees constantly force people to choose between paying their rent or paying the court. Recently, there have been a lot of articles that have come out as people are trying to organize around traffic tickets and fines. And Miss Maryland here with Women on the Rise has been working around the probation companies that make $40 million a year in Georgia, make $40 million a year, basically by having people pay for their freedom.
Wow.
Last year, the Atlanta City Municipal Court, which is for minor offenses, traffic offenses, parking offenses, made $24 million off of the Atlanta citizens. And this year, Mayor Christine Reed proposed that we increase that by $7.5 million. He anticipates that we will bring in nearly $31 million through collecting more traffic fines and more parking fines from Atlanta's poorest citizens. And how does he want to do that? By having more failure to appears, which are $100 fines, by having more police on the streets and enforcing these minor traffic offenses, and by enforcing bench warrants, which we know once you have a bench warrant, your license is suspended. That's $100 to reinstate your license. That's $100 when you show up in court for a failure to appear. You also have to pay your bond if you want to be released, and then you have to pay those mounting fines. So that's how the city is able to bring in this $24 million a year. This is not something that is specific to Atlanta. Across the nation, there are Black people are being targeted and profiled for minor traffic offenses. We saw in Ferguson when they did a report early 2015 that Blacks accounted for 85% of the traffic stops, 90% of the tickets, and 93% of the arrests. The Atlanta Police Department, myth or fact, the Atlanta Police Department spends the majority of its resources on preventing and resolving serious and violent crimes, focusing on the safety and protection of all of its residents. Fact. APD's broken window policing encourages profiling and harassment of the most vulnerable in our communities. Evidence shows that this does not increase public safety. These are just a few of the many minor offenses that people are currently sitting in the Atlanta City Detention Center for. Idling and loitering, pedestrian walking in a roadway, pedestrian soliciting a ride or business, headlight not properly installed on a vehicle, failure to carry or exhibit a license, littering. And the offenses go on and on and on. In Atlanta, you can simply be arrested and sitting in the Atlanta City Detention Center for a broken tail light or crossing the street without being in the crosswalk. The current system is failing us. At its best, the current system, cops, courts, and jails, is failing us by not actually making us safer, nor making our communities stronger or healthier. At its worst, our system preys on our most vulnerable residents for profit and political gain. Something must change. We're going to have BT come up here and talk about the solutions that we want to see, because we envision a vibrant, inclusive Atlanta that ensures safety and holistically meets the needs of all of the city stakeholders and residents. We will achieve this by transforming the policies and cultures of the police, our elected officials, the justice system, and the larger community. BT is going to share more with you about what the Solutions Not Punishment Coalition wants to do to change the city of Atlanta.
What we want, the pre-arrest diversion program. Like Ms. DeeDee said, Ms. DeeDee and myself, we've been friends for probably 14 or 15 years. And a whole group of citizens, around 100 people, social being one of those people, met to stop this idea of banishment, the fact that you can literally banish a person from where they live and work and not allow them to come back to that area. I thought it was crazy and egregious. So we all met that day and we kept meeting, and I felt this beautiful leader, Social, said, hey, let's figure out a way to really make a difference and make this change. So the Seattle Leads program is what we're basing our pre-arrest diversion program off of. And this is a quote from one of our residents and a former sex worker. I can tell you what got me off the streets, finding a safe place to lay my head and food to eat. If I don't know where my next meal is coming from or where I will be able to sleep tonight, then I'm forced back to the streets. The pre-arrest diversion program hopes to be a program that does housing first. Again, that's what they do in Seattle. If you don't have somewhere to stay, you're going to figure out a way to stay and a way to feed yourself. What is pre-arrest diversion? Pre-arrest diversion, we call it APAD, Atlanta Pre-Arrest Diversion Program, is a shift of investment out of the criminal legal system and back into our communities. So basically, when you're stopped by the police or engaged in some, you don't even have to be the police. It could be a citizen, you can go up to the police. Instead of them arresting you, they will offer you a program. And it's immediately case management based. So you will have a case manager that will sit and talk to you and figure out what you need, what your needs are, what's going on with you, if it's housing, if it's job, if it's employment. And that's what we hope to bring here in Atlanta. So some of the articles that's been happening, the Washington Post recently, this is about the Seattle Pre-Arrest Diversion Program. It keeps addicts, the Seattle attempt to keep addicts out of jail and shines in the studies. It's doing really well. More than 60% of the participants are not repeating offenses, and it's just been an amazing record. So recently, Social and others went to the White House. So even the White House is behind this, and we have some, this is like the most recent information around that. So it reduces recidivism by 60%, which is huge. I mean, it's just saving, they realize that it's saving the city's money. The same money that went into law enforcement and the repeat offenders and just locking people up and putting them in jail, now that goes to housing and substance abuse programs. So what we need for pre-arrest diversion now, 92% of the people being held in Atlanta City Jail are black, like Dean already pointed out. Atlanta leads the nation in income equality, and Atlanta ranks dead last in income mobility. So blacks in Atlanta are unemployed at a rate 3 times greater than whites living in Atlanta. And we would like for you to join the movement for pre-arrest diversion here in Atlanta. That's why we have you here today. We have a faith community group that we're building. We have a business community group that I'm in charge of, and Ms. Marilyn is in charge of the community neighborhood groups. If we get everybody behind this, get your congregations and your friends and family to truly understand it's coming. We have the funding for it. We're going to start a design program. It's happening. If you guys can get on board with us, explain it to your congregation, get them on board and get trained up in doing these kind of PowerPoints so that we can spread it across the city. And we just have to take it to the city council at this point. So these are some of the people that's already on board with us. Kwanzaa Hall is hopefully our city council champion. Commissioner Arlington, Paul Howard, Chief Deputy Splain, Raines, on and on and on. We have some top people that's behind us and moving forward with this.
Miss DeeDee.
How can you help work with other faith leaders to craft a prayer statement. We would like within the coming weeks to come out with a press release from our faith community of a prayer of what they want for our disadvantaged and our poor people that are suffering in the criminal justice system. The faith community has been kind of quiet on this subject, so this is going to be the opportunity to come on board and do like what was done in the 60s when Martin Luther King made a call out to the clergy. That's what really brought the forefront and the faith community back into the forefront and leading this fight. 21st is the day that we are going to drop the resolution. City Councilman Hall is going to introduce the resolution into the City Council. That would be a day we will expect our faith champions and our clergy to be present. They have a public comment portion at the resolution hearing, and we would like for you to speak on how this would affect your community and what it would mean to you, and why this resolution needs to be passed. Also, a day of action of prayer inside your own congregation. After we give you some of the materials we have today for you, we will hope that you will be able to go back to your congregations and maybe do a sermon around this issue, where your church stands on this issue, and how you want to address this issue. We can no longer look over this issue. Writing or submitting a letter of support. We do have a sign-on letter. If you actually sign on to the letter, your name will be published when the prayer is published for the press release under that prayer.
So, we would like to play you all another song. I know we just did a lot of talking, but to kind of raise the energy in the space, we want to play another song for you all.